Welcome to Old Classic Car, and in this compilation we are looking at original photographs of American cars and also several Canadian built equivalents. So, to begin with, we have this fantastic quartet of photographs featuring a right-hand drive circa 1935 Chevrolet Master Deluxe. What a stunning looking car that is. It's hard to imagine that one day that was just a regular looking car that you wouldn't look twice at, but what an incredible looking car that is, and 4 great old photographs to kick off this collection. Now we are here in the UK and we have KAE 934. This is a circa 1946 or early 47 Packard Clipper. That is a Bristol registration. The car looks to be pretty much brand new in this photo. Look at the meat on those front tyres, plenty of tread there. We've got a side-on view of the same car here, the Packard. It looks a bit like a stretched Wolseley 680 to me, certainly from the side, maybe not from the front, but what an incredible looking car that is. Next up we have an interesting photo here. According to the note on the back, which I've scanned and included there, the Queen Elizabeth II, was in this mighty Cadillac as it drove past in Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, in April of 1954. What's that on top of the windscreen on the roof there? Some sort of badge. Okay, anyway, we're over in America now, I believe. We've got the first of many, many Ford Model Ts to feature in this collection. What a beautiful photograph that is. Couple there with their lovely old Ford and the flags proudly emblazoned on the radiator there. What a great old scene that is. Nice socks, sir. Okay, slightly later with this one we have a 1939 Pontiac being graced by a young lady there. Quite a stylish looking car, these Pontiacs. You can always tell them by that band of strips down the middle of the front of the bonnet there, or the hood. That's usually a sign that you're looking at a Pontiac. Next up, a mighty Hudson. This one is on a 1948 Ohio license plate, or license tag as it would be called there, so that probably is roughly the date of this particular car. What a great looking car that is. Really low slung cars these are. Now I'm not quite sure what this particular Tourer is, but the date is March 18th 1917, and it's this couple's 42nd wedding anniversary. So even though we're a little bit short on details with the car, unless you can identify this one for me, what a lovely old photograph that is. Now we have a Meteor. This is Ford of Canada's Meteor. This one was built around about 1950. This would have been the Canadian built equivalent to the old shoebox era Fords that were built in the States. But yeah, what a great old scene that is. Meteor, you can see the badging across the front of the bonnet there. Now, slightly older now, 341-M8, or MA8 is the registration number of this. It's a 1935 Chevrolet Roadster. A couple of ladies sat in it, apparently. But yeah, I wonder where that is. I wonder if anyone recognises that particular registration plate and can identify where this photograph was taken. Now here's a nice one. We've got a rear view here of a 56 Chevrolet Bel Air 4-door sedan. And we are in the Philippines in 1965 for this particular scene. What a great scene that is. Looks like a ferry somewhere in the Philippines. Cebu, I think it is, if that rings a bell with anyone. Okay, lovely another old ghostly photo here. And we have another example of Henry Ford's Model T, the old Tin Lizzie. So even though it's a little bit aged, this photo is still very atmospheric and well over 100 years old now. And we're back to the UK and we've got MMJ 977. This rarity is a 1954 Nash Rambler Country Club hardtop, I believe. What a super rare car that is. And you can just see an A40 van, I think it is, parked behind it. But yeah, that Nash must have been a super rare sight here in the UK. Now we're probably in the 1950s, but looking at a much older car here, registered AD3553. This is a 1913 Buick. It still shows up as being registered, but it hasn't been taxed since 2018, so I wonder where this car is at the moment. Stashed away in someone's garage, I imagine. But yeah, we'll no doubt be back on the road soon. Okay, we have a Mercury here. This is a 1947, I believe, Mercury sedan coupe, and it has a New Brunswick, Canada license plate on this particular example. So again, we are in Canada for this particular scene. 998553 is the registration of this 1953 Pontiac Chieftain, and again you've got the very distinctive strips down the centre and the front of the bonnet. Pontiac theme for many years. That was often their sort of identifier, if you like. Here's a fine old car. What are we looking at here? PK8487. I think this is a circa 1929 Chrysler Landau. That is a Surrey registration here in the UK, complete with chauffeur, stood proudly alongside it. And now we have a young lady stood alongside a mighty American car here. The car in question is a 1939 Chevrolet Coupe Master Deluxe. The location isn't known, but what a great looking car that is. And again, that was just a regular car. These would have been seen everywhere across America. The date for this one is March 1954. There's a handy date there, MZ 584. The car in question is a 1953 Plymouth, I believe, and it's on an Ontario, Canada license plate on this particular left-hand drive example. Back to veteran cars, and you can clearly see we're looking at a 1902 Baker Electric. EOX1 is the registration, and happily this one is still registered here in the UK. It hasn't been taxed for 3 or 4 years, but I'm sure it'll be out and about on one of the veteran car club runs before too long. And there's a lovely old photograph here, somewhere out in the colonies I suspect, and we've got a Ford Model A. Now, one of my favourite photographs in this entire collection, registered BAN 980. This is a 1934 to 36 DeSoto Airflow, close relative of the Chrysler Airflow. But what an amazing looking car that is. No wonder the guy's giving a thumbs up there. It's a great looking car. And the side-on view now of a 1949 Dodge Meadowbrook. The gentleman there is looking particularly happy, surrounded as he is by 3 young ladies, and who can blame him? And he has a magnificent Dodge just to add to his joy. Now, Peter Ward photographed this over in New Zealand many years ago, AM 5380 Ford Super Deluxe from about 1947. There's an early Mark I Ford Cortina parked alongside it. And is that a Datsun in the background? I think it probably is. Now we have a lovely vintage Tourer here. This looks very much like a Buick, about 1918 or thereabouts. Buick, wooden wheels, probably no brakes on the front, just braking to the rear wheels only, I would imagine. And everyone inside wrapped up for a chilly day's drive out in the countryside. Now we're back to Pontiacs again. FXR 569, a UK registered Pontiac. That registration dates to about 1939, and it was first registered in London. It appears to be missing the headlamp glass over on the far side there, so I'm not quite sure where that's gone, but what a great looking car that is. Now we're at a motor racing circuit, I think in the early 1960s, possibly Crystal Palace. And this car, 82mm, is a Studebaker, probably a Studebaker Lark. And alongside it to the right there is a Triumph TR3A and one of the big BMC Farinas on the other side. What a beauty. This one is ND4227. That's not a UK registration number, but the car is a right-hand drive 1933 Dodge sedan. What a fantastic looking car that is, complete with a spare wheel and cover on the offside running board there. But what an amazing looking car. And how about this? You don't see too many Studebakers around. This one dates to, I think, 1949, 4-door Studebaker. What model is that? Is it a Commander or a Champion perhaps? Handily the photo is dated September 1955. There's some young lads here. I'm not quite sure what car we're looking at in the background there, but it doesn't really matter. What a fantastic scene. Probably well over 100 years ago, this particular scene. 2 young lads, a dog, a magnificent Tourer in the background, and another bloke leaning on his rake in the background. What a lovely scene that is. We're back to very early cars here, and we've got an early vintage Chadwick Tourer. Chadwick, another American maker that you very rarely hear nowadays. And there's a scrutineer from the Veteran Car Club of Great Britain on the right there, peering at the mighty engine under the bonnet of that Chadwick. What an incredible engine that looks. Another one of Peter's photographs here. This was in Luxembourg. Thanks for sending this over. Photographed in 1982, so it's probably the newest photo on here. We've got a gold Plymouth from 1950, a convertible version of the 50 Plymouth. Very handsome it is too, and some interesting cars in the background as well. Parade day for this lineup of 1910s or teens cars. I'm not quite sure exactly what we're looking at, but on the right hand side, look at that, a Stanley Steamer, a steam powered American car. What an incredible scene that is. That would look fantastic if that was in colour. What a treat that would be. Okay, ND11412 is the license plate on this Chevrolet sedan, a right-hand drive Chevrolet sedan. So I'm guessing maybe we are in South Africa, possibly somewhere like that. But yeah, what a great mascot as well on the radiator of this particular car. Now we're here in the UK, and here we've got several photographs of the Hollywood Motor Rodeo circa 1955, and a couple of examples of the old Ford Custom line there, and a Mark I Zephyr or a Zodiac, probably that two-tone paint job. But does anyone remember seeing the Hollywood Motor Rodeo? Anyway, to much earlier times now, and looks like we've got a Buick Tourer here, right-hand drive car from the early to mid 1920s, complete with wooden spoked wheels, very similar to those on the old 24 Dodge that we had until not that long ago. Here's a great one with a note on the back. My father's Q car, 36 Ford V8 with 49 Mercury, 4-litre V8 engine, Allard heads, twin carbs and exhausts. And this was in Johannesburg. What a great photo that is. I love it when there are notes on the back of these old photos. That looks like a very well used Ford. And we have a very unusually smart looking pickup truck here. That's very nice indeed. It appears to be about 1938. It's a Chevrolet half-ton pickup truck there behind that gentleman. As to the location, I have no idea, I'm afraid. And here's just a general street scene with a variety of cars. We've got a late 40s car in the foreground, maybe a Chevy, and various other cars going away into the distance there outside a chapel, it would seem. If you can add any information on the cars that feature in this American and Canadian cars collection, please pop a note into the comments. Okay, OW8448. This is a Southampton registered right-hand drive Ford from 1935, and there's a couple of ladies there ready for a drive out in their venerable Ford. I love the lamps on those, and look at those chrome hooters either side of the radiator grille. What a great looking car that is. And staying with Ford, now we've got a side-on view of, I believe, a V8 Ford Custom Line sedan. It's a four-door sedan of the early to mid 1950s, complete with radio aerial, so there's obviously a radio fitted to this particular car. But yeah, great scene. And talking of great scenes, we're going back a lot further in time. I think this is probably a Buick of the mid 1920s, and it looks like the family's ready for a bit of a dip, a bit of a day out swimming by the look of those costumes. Yeah, what a great old car that is. Looks fairly new at the time. I like the tyres as well. And we are over in New Zealand in the 1970s, thanks to Peter again for one of his amazing photographs. And here we've got a colour photo of a circa 1937 Chevrolet four-door. What a great scene that is. I wonder if that car was rescued or if that's where it ended its days. Oh, look at this beautiful Ford. As you may have noticed, I've got a soft spot now for V8 Fords. And this, they don't get much better than this. About 1937, this Ford V8, and it's got a 1948 New York license plate or license tag, and looks like it's possibly had a headlamp conversion as well. Now we are under the front of an unidentified Tourer. It's got a 1929 New York plate on the front, so this lad's clearly got his work cut out underneath the front of that one. But what car are we looking at here? It's got a fairly distinctive radiator surround, looking by just behind the license tag there. It curves up where the starting handle hole is. Okay, now this is a nice scene. This is Sarnia, Canada in July of 1945. We've got a whole gaggle of lovely cars, but the main one on the left there is a magnificent Packard. What a great scene. I recommend pausing some of these videos and just check out some of the detail. You've got the Colonial Hotel there as well. What a great scene. And how about this? We've got a lovely Ford Model A, a four-door Model A sedan here. And look at the mascot. It's got a very interesting animal mascot, a leaping jaguar or something like that on the radiator mascot, and several badges on there as well. So yeah, lovely, lovely car. And how about this? This is a bit of a weird one. This, parked out in the grass outside a little house, is a 1942 Dodge D22 four-door sedan. And you can see the very distinctive Dodge Ram mascot in the middle of the bonnet, or the hood, as I should say. And yeah, lovely, lovely photo. Much, much older though. We've got a side-on view now of, I think this is a Chevrolet Tourer. You can just about see the bow tie badge on the radiator surround. Yeah, this one dates to about 1916, I think. It looks particularly dusty. And there's a young lady sat behind the steering wheel of this left-hand drive car, and all the family in the back ready for a nice trip out. And we're back in New Zealand, and this is a DeSoto, a special deluxe, I believe, a four-door car, the suicide rear doors, and this one dates to 1946. I do love this era of car. Late 40s and early 1950s American cars are really, really nice, I think. Now we are somewhere, I believe, in America, and a trio of American cars there. I can see a couple of Ford Model Ts. I'm not quite sure what the car on the right is. Maybe you can identify that one for me. Pop a note in the comments. I did wonder if it was a Dodge, but I'm not entirely sure about the shape of that radiator surround. And here we have a Buick, another classic American vehicle here. Someone's handily written 1918 on the photograph where the running board is. And yeah, chirpy looking young lad there, sat behind the wheel of his left-hand drive Buick. And that's a Washington State plate on the front, I think. And a whole line, a whole gaggle of cars here, photographed in 1938. I think we've got a Pontiac Coupe, a 37 Plymouth, possibly a Buick, a 36 Ford, and what's that Tourer in the background? Is that a Packard? I think it probably is, looking at the radiator surround on that particular car. But what a great run out, what a great scene that is. And here we've got a lad, his dog, and the 41 Ford Coupe Super Deluxe, presumably painted black. Next up in this collection of American cars, we've got a couple and their young daughter and an unidentified Tourer. What car are we looking at there? There isn't a great deal to go on, but I like that gentleman's hat. I might have to get one of those. Yeah, lovely, lovely photo. Even though it's faded and a bit ghostly looking, it's 100 odd years old now. I think they're just wonderful. Okay, S3938 appears to be a post-war Chevrolet Fleetmaster. Painted headlamp surrounds was just one of the features, I think, of the Fleetmaster when compared to some of the slightly higher spec versions of the same basic model that were available at the time. I'm not quite sure where we are now or what pickup we're looking at there. Is it possibly an International? I'm not quite sure, but a great scene there of a couple of beekeepers and their hives. I love that little box in the foreground, the National Biscuit Company, it says, just on the floor there in the foreground. So yeah, interesting scene. And as is this. Now look at this, this is quite unusual. We've got two Ford Model Ts, and in the 1920s and 30s there were so many options and accessories available to tailor your Model T, and the one on the right has a very unusual radiator assembly on it. You can tell by the front suspension that we're looking at a Model T, but this has an aftermarket radiator on it, giving it a very distinctive look. Okay, FL2200 is a 1949 Chrysler Windsor. Outside a stamps and watches shop, it would appear. Where this emporium was, I do not know. And there's a nice clock just high up there, you can just see it above the car. And how about this for a handsome machine? What a beauty, HF9791, a 1934 Hudson Terraplane 6. Outside an equally magnificent building, but what a great looking car that is. Very Clark Gable. A1459 is the license tag on this one, and this is a 1941 Ford Super Deluxe. It has a very distinctive crease down the front wings or fenders there. You can see it comes forward, wraps down under the headlights, and it goes in towards the centre grille, with the Super Deluxe badging also visible in this photo. Now, according to notes on the back of this one, the car is a 1920s Hupmobile saloon. And if you can identify the particular model of Hupmobile that we're looking at here, please do so in the comment section. If you like this kind of thing, please think about liking and subscribing to the channel. That always helps. Here's a young lady not looking overly impressed with being told to pose for this photograph alongside a 1949 Chevrolet two-door Fleetline Deluxe. And look over on the left there, quite an early example of the good old Morris Minor with a 53 Massachusetts plate on it. Another smallish photograph here, but interesting nevertheless. Now, I'm not sure if this is a Hudson or possibly an Essex. Clearly it's a two-door saloon on wooden wheels, but yeah, what are we looking at here? And just three general scenes here. We've got a church, a whole gaggle of motor cars. What is the car in the bottom photograph there? It's got fairly distinctive mouldings down the side of the hood or the bonnet, but I'm sure someone will recognise that. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't quite remember what it is, which is quite frustrating, but never mind. Here we've got a young lad, possibly his mother stood behind, and the venerable, quite an early Ford Model T. Look at the old lamps there, the old carbide lamps. And no brakes on those front wheels. Amazing. You can see the transverse leaf spring, which tells us that this is a Model T. Another great colour photo here from New Zealand. The car in question is a Chevrolet four-door sedan from 1951. And a very handsome looking car it is too. Another beautiful photograph here. A young lady stood alongside a beautiful Plymouth. This is a 1937 Plymouth Coupe. I love the Plymouth badge just on top of the license plate there. Indiana, a 38 plate as well, so the car was almost new at the time of this photograph. What a great scene that is. And look at this. I'm not quite sure what the car is, so you're going to have to help me out on this one. But three photographs of a camping trip and a saloon of the 1920s or possibly 1930. But what car is it? Can you identify this American car for me? I'm sure someone will know. And here's an interesting pier side scene somewhere in the US of A. I'm not quite sure where we are, but the car looks like a Ford Model A, and the tyre appears to be missing on the spare wheel mounted on the back there, but I'm pretty sure that's a Model A. But I'd love to know where that is or what's going on there. Sadly, we'll probably never know. Now look at this, another very special car to feature in this collection. A 1934 LaSalle Coupe, possibly a Series 350. What a sleek looking car that is, and very distinctive air vents on the side of the bonnet there. And the mascot there designed to impale anyone that gets in the way. And what a great looking bit of kit that is. And I do love these street scenes as well. Again, pause this one and just have a proper look. The car on the left I think is a 23 or 24 Studebaker. But there are so many vintage cars. Look at that. You've got Thompson's Shoe and Army Store across the road, a bakery, cafeteria. So much going on in that photograph. Got a great scene. And a high up view now on a particularly snowy day of what appears to be a 1950s Chevrolet Style Line Special. Four-door sedan. And here's some chirpy looking chaps behind the wheel of a right-hand drive, presumably British registered Ford Model T. I'm guessing this photo dates to the 1940s or 1950s, so it would have been of some age already by the time of this photograph. It's got a trade plate clipped to the front end there, so what the original registration was of that vehicle, who knows. And another lovely street scene here. We've got a Chevy pickup on the left and looks like another one driving up the road towards us, and a variety of cars over on the right hand side. There's a sign on the right there for Eat Hamburgers. Yes, we better go and do that after we finish doing this video. Harvest time somewhere in America here. Three great photographs. On the bottom right there's a 39 Chevrolet pickup truck in black, a half-ton pickup, but look at those well-laden lorries there. We've got a variety of vehicles there, Chevrolets, and I can see at least one International as well, and a Ford on the right-hand side too. Now, a side-on view of what I think is a 1920s Essex Tourer. Great old photograph printed on card, so clearly this meant a lot to somebody when this photo was taken 100 or so years ago. What a great scene that is. Brakes on the back only, nothing on the front. Two photos now of a somewhat later American car. This appears to be just post-war, about 1947, Buick convertible, and her mum and her daughter posed with it. What a great looking car that is. wonder if that's got a straight 8 in it. I know many Buicks at that time did have a straight 8. Now this is an interesting car, Packard 120 convertible coupe, sort of about 1935 to 37. Look at the headlamp mask and the blackout painted bumper at the front and the edges of the running board. So that tells us it's probably driven in and around London during the Second World War. But yeah, very interesting photograph there. And here's a young lady gazing wistfully down on a about 1950 Buick Super 4-door sedan, and quite a few other interesting cars there as well. So, but where this is, can anyone identify it? It's a bit of a push, I think, to identify where this photo was taken, but you never know. Another classic American job here, low-down view of a 1940 Oldsmobile. I think it's a Series 60 2-door sedan. I like the building in the background as well. Now we're back to old Studebakers, and this is I believe, a Studebaker Flighthawk from about 1956, and there's a lady perched on the front fender there. It's quite a glamorous looking building in the background as well. I do love the scenes as well as the cars. The scenes in the background are often just as interesting. And look at this, first of two photographs now of a mighty Buick Tourer. I think this is a standard 6 Sport Touring from about 1927. That's a very handsome car. And I love the little opera windows just set into the rear corners of the hood there on the roof. That makes it quite unusual, and a very distinctive grille on the Buicks. And there's a rear view of the same car with a magnificent steam locomotive thundering past in the background. I think we may be in Australia for this particular scene, but if you can shed light and perhaps identify the loco that's up on the raised railroad behind, please pop a note in the comments, because I'd love to know a bit more about this one. And here's a cheery photo of a lady and possibly her son, and they're stood alongside a 1937 Oldsmobile. I think it's a straight 8 powered Olds, and there's a whole gaggle of Chevrolets for sale in the background in that used car lot. What a great scene that is. A side view now of a Roadster pickup. I'm still not entirely sure what we're looking at here. There's a Model T in the building in the background, but is this a Model T? It could be. The wheels look very similar to those on the Model T, and it's got those sort of barrel-shaped headlamps, but I'm not entirely sure. But this one, wow, look at that. One of the most incredible looking American cars of all, the Cord 810. What a beautiful street scene that is. I wonder how common those cars were at the time. Surely that must have been quite an eye-catching car, even at the time in the 1930s. Next up, we've got quite a gaggle of motor cars here. There's a about 1946 Ford on the left-hand side, and a 36 Chevrolet on the right. And I just think those are stunning looking cars. I think those sort of late 30s cars, I just think they're beautiful. There's even a Ford Prefect in the background and a Vauxhall 12 in the distance too. And here's a chap proudly polishing his very shiny DeSoto. This car is about 1949, I believe, the date of this one. It's a 4-door sedan, left-hand drive. Can't see any license plate on this one, so I'm not sure whereabouts this might have been taken. But yeah, what a great old car that is. Clearly a snowy time of year, and someone fortunately took a snap of this 1940 Chevrolet 2-door convertible. Certainly looks a bit chilly there. Can't quite make out on the license plate where we might be in this particular photo, but it's an interesting photograph. And as is this, somewhere out in the colonies, I believe. Looks like a bit of a makeshift ferry somewhere, and the car is a Chevrolet of the 1920s. What a great scene that is. Anyone recognise that license plate? It doesn't look very familiar to me. Now here's a handsome looking car. We've got what appears to be a 1939 Oldsmobile, probably a Series 60 convertible, 2-door convertible. You got the split windscreen there. Very distinctive front end on these cars as well. That's really, really smart. Next, a side-on view of a, I think it's about 1930 or 31 Ford Model A Tudor or 2-door saloon. Great car, 3.3 litre 4-cylinder side valve engine under that bonnet. Really, really dependable and super popular even now in vintage car events. And here we have just a general street scene with an officer of the law directing traffic. Are we in New York? It's got that sort of vibe, a New York vibe to it. Maybe someone recognises that taxi cab on the right hand side there. And this is a very interesting car. You can just about make out this very distinctive grills on the side of the hood there, on the side of the bonnet. This is about 1930 Chrysler, possibly a Series 70. Yeah, you don't see too many photographs of these around there. We're back to Ford's finest here, 46 Ford V8 Super Deluxe. This is in South Africa and it looks to be an official car. It's got a very distinctive plate on the front there with the number 6 on it and a flag just above the driver's side door window. So yeah, where are we with that one? I wonder what the story is with that particular car. Here's a great scene here and a note on the back saying, "Dear Bill, this is my Erskine taken at Orange Lake in New York. Light blue in colour. A passenger, 5-passenger sedan." That's a great photograph. What a lovely looking car and lovely mascot on it as well. Now, you'll have to help me out on this one. I'm not quite sure what this two-door coupe is, but it's just a lovely looking car. Very distinctive wheels on it, wire-spoked wheels on it, so maybe they will help identify this particular car. Still plenty of these American car photos to come, and now we have an early 1950s, I think it's 1952, Chrysler Imperial left-hand drive car. No obvious license plate on this particular car, so maybe it's fallen off, or maybe it hasn't even been road registered yet, who knows. That's certainly a very imposing looking car. And we are in the 1920s now. I think this is probably a Dodge. It looks very much like the Dodges of the early 1920s, and there's a young lady there wielding a big spanner, so you won't go arguing with her. Ruth with their car, June 1923. There we go. It's about 22 or 23, that car. Somewhat newer, a very chilly day, a 1957 Plymouth Belvedere. That looks very cold indeed. Look at those icicles hanging off the building in the background. Here's a jaunty looking chap with his hat at a jaunty angle, and the car behind is another example of a Dodge 4, very similar to our old Dodge that we had. This is presumably an American bodied car. You can just about make out its left-hand drive. And here we've got a Ford. This is one of the old shoebox Fords from about 1950. We saw that Meteor before, which was the Ford of Canada equivalent, and this is the American original. Like I say, there are one or two Canadian variants that feature in this particular upload, just for a bit of added variety to mix in with all the American cars featured. Here we've got a UK registered American car, MV6900, a 1932 Ford Saloon. As to the location, I'm not quite sure, but yeah, what a great looking car that is. Family day out by the look of it. AA badge and RAC badge on the front of it too. And this is a great photograph. It's almost like an artist photograph of a gent perched on the front wing of his Ford Model T coupe. I love the hat, sir. Another mighty DeSoto here. This one is on a 1948 New York registration plate, or license tag as it should be called, and that is probably the date of the car that you're looking at here. Very distinctive front, these DeSotos, a big mass of chrome at the front, so there's no doubting what that particular car is. Now we've got a side-on view of a car that I'm not 100% sure about. I've got a feeling it could be about 1926 Dodge two-door coupe, but I could easily be wrong on that one, so let me know in the comments what this car is. And look in the background, there's City Cafeteria, so maybe this lady and her accomplice have just pulled over for a quick cup of coffee. And next up, a 1941 Chevrolet Special Deluxe. You can see the Special Deluxe badging on the side of the bonnet there, and there's a chap in uniform, presumably just about ready to jump in it and drive away. And here's a chap preparing to clean his somewhat dented 1941 Ford. Again, it's got that very distinctive crease down the front wings and under the headlights over to the grille there. But yeah, this one, certainly the back wing on it, looks very bashed indeed. So it's clearly led a bit of a life, this one. And here we've got a charming young lady sat behind the wheel of an unidentified 1920s Tourer. What car are we looking at there, I wonder? Do you know what that car is? I can see it's got hand throttle, or maybe the advance and retard on the steering column there. But yes, early 1920s, I would have thought that particular one. And look at this. This is such a distinctive car. This is a 1938 Willis Model 77. What a great looking car. The way the headlights are faired into the front wings there, that would be sort of a foretaste of things to come in the 1940s, where headlamps began to be incorporated within the front fenders. Another lovely street scene here. We've got a 51 Mercury with a lady stood alongside it. This is in Ontario somewhere, but again, just pause the video and just have a look at all the details in the background there. You've got the Paramount, the Odeon, the capital signs there as well. So much going on. There's a clock tower in the background as well. And here we have a very smartly dressed gent holding a miniature windmill. Now, what is the car? I'm guessing this is a Buick. It's got a bit of a Buick vibe to it, I think, especially with that little oval rear quarter window in the back of the roof. So, what model are we looking at? Let me know in the comments, please. This is probably one of the newest cars to feature in this particular collection of American car photographs. This is a 1963 Mercury Monterey Breezeway, four-door sedan, I believe, and what a huge car that is. Incredible looking machine. Side on view now of an unidentified Tourer. I'm not quite sure what it is, but there's a whole gaggle of very chirpy looking people here, clearly enjoying their day out on September the 30th, 1928, according to the note there at the bottom. What a great scene, what a lovely scene that is. Two photos now of a good old Buick, an Ontario, Canada registered Buick. This is quite a thing. This is a Buick Century Riviera hardtop coupe on a 1955 registration plate. You can just see that on the front of the car there. And the young lady cheerfully posed alongside it, and there she is sat behind the steering wheel of this mighty Buick. It looks to be in immaculate condition, so I'm guessing this is possibly photographed as a new car purchase. The date on the photo at the top there is May 1955, so I'm guessing the car was brand new when this particular photo was taken. Great stuff. Now, this is a handsome looking machine. It took me a little while to research what exactly this is. This is a Nash 422 Roadster, or a drophead coupe as we'd call it here in the UK. This video is probably, it's took the longest to prepare for this one, because every photograph I had to try and identify the cars that are in it. So this one has taken a huge amount of time to put together, but I hope you find it of interest. Now, we've got a couple of ladies and a 1952 Chrysler Imperial, a huge motor car there, very huge amount of presence. Look at the size of the mascot in the centre of the bonnet of that one. What an incredible looking car that is. Still split windows, of course, at this point of time. Now look at this. Here's a gent leaning against the front of his international truck. What a great scene with a pair of Alice Chalmers crawlers chained onto the back of it. So there's clearly a bit of weight there. Probably a little bit overloaded, I would imagine. But yeah, what a great picture that is. I love that one. And it's a very snowy scene here in the 1930s. And we appear to have a two-door Ford V8 coupe, or coupe, with a much earlier Tourer just visible in the background. I wonder what that was, but I'm guessing this dates to the mid to late 1930s, this particular photograph. And here's an interesting one, LLF 118, a Packard, that's a 1950 registration, London, and the little CD plate on the front tells me that that is a diplomatic-owned car. So perhaps the gent behind the wheel was involved in the government or some sort of authorities and had diplomatic immunity. Now here's a nice one. This one I had to research. This is a Packard, and look at those very distinctive headlamps. Those are E&J headlamps. Edmunds and Jones apparently is the maker for those very distinctive lamps. And yeah, the young lady with her hand on top of it, clearly that was the subject of this photo, just to make a feature of that. And we are back in very snowy conditions, and we have a 1940 Buick, and many Buicks can be identified by the three overriders that they have on the front bumpers. That seems to be a bit of a thing with Buicks for many years. And another couple of amazing photographs. These again are some of my favourites here. We've got a 1933 Willis, And just look at the shape of the front, the grille, the headlights fed into the front wings, and the side view. Look at the side of the bonnet, and even the wheels are super distinctive as well. Really, really crazy looking car. Now we are just post-war, about 1946, and the Studebaker Commander. I think we're maybe in Sri Lanka, or Ceylon as it was, for this particular photo, but if you recognise that style of registration plates, please let me know in the comments. Still got quite a few more American car photos to come, and look at this, a lovely young lady there inside what appears to be a Chevrolet Master convertible coupe. Great scene. What a wonderful time that must have been. If you had a few bob behind you and you could buy cars like that, what fun there was to be had. And just another great photo here. Clearly the car in the background wasn't the subject of the photo, but you can just see a Ford Model T peering out from behind that tree, and there's a couple there, and maybe their young child as well. But yeah, what a lovely old American scene from 100 or so years ago now. Time marches on, doesn't it? Here's an interesting one. S14 is the registration, a gentleman in short trousers, no less, and the car is a 1947 Pontiac Silver Streak. But as to the location, well, that's anyone's guess, but again, maybe you recognise that style of registration plate. Another wonderful day out here, three cars in fact, and quite a huge turnout of people, quite a bunch of characters there, all wearing hats, which of course is something I approve of. I strongly approve of appropriate attire, headgear, whenever driving an old car like this. But what car is that? I do not know. And here, well, we've got a Ford Model T, there's no prizes for guessing that one, and the gent in the photo there's even written at the top of the photo, Lizzie and me, the old Tin Lizzie, as these were known back in the day. Lovely photo. I can't quite make out the plate on the front of that one there. Here's a beauty as well, three-quarter view of a about 1929 or 1930 Buick four-door sedan. And yeah, that is just a very handsome, beautifully turned out looking car. And you can see the Buick badge in the middle between the headlamps on the little bar that passes between the lamps. Bit newer now, snowy again, and we have a post-war 1947-ish Oldsmobile four-door sedan. Again, quite a handsome car, very distinctive grills on these, the way that sort of the bars come across and drop down either side. That's really quite a distinctive car. TO 2126 with three chaps stood alongside is a 1936 Chevrolet sedan. Amazing looking car. I do love the sort of the streamlined look that was coming into play in the mid to late 1930s. Just great looking. And to round out this collection of American and a few Canadian photographs, we have this Ford Model A truck with some sort of cart on the back there, and the gent behind the wheel. Look at the state of the door trim on that particular Ford. That's clearly a very well used old truck. And that, as I say, completes this collection of original photographs featuring American and Canadian built cars from the 1920s through to the early 1960s. I hope you found this one of interest. It did take quite a long time to put this one together, so please give it a like. Please think about subscribing to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and have a look around, because there are hundreds, literally hundreds of videos about classic cars, vintage cars and so on elsewhere here on the Old Classic Car channel. So thanks for watching. Many more videos along very soon, so bye for now.